I love Tim Ferriss' icebreaker. What did you have for breakfast? So it was a breakfast, Malte.
I don't do breakfast.
Intermittent fasting?
No, I always have a chai latte, like a tea with a lot of milk and sugar for breakfast. So it's definitely not fasting that I'm doing. And if I didn't have anything in the evening, I sometimes eat a little bit breakfast, but on a normal day, I don't eat.
Huh. Interesting. So you're fully on trend, is what you're saying. So for those of you who don't see the video at the moment, Malte is drinking a Club Mate, which is a thing in Berlin, and I'm having a coffee. So we're both full of caffeine, ready to rock this conversation. So what's the thing with Club Mate in Berlin? How would you explain that to an American or to a foreigner?
I've actually tried many times to get my US colleagues hooked on it. And from time to time, we bring a case to our US office. I always describe it as something you don't like, but after I force you a couple of times to drink it, you will start to like it.
That's how Germans show their love. They force you to do something until you like it.
I mean, it's the same with beer. Almost nobody likes the first beer that they drink, or coffee, because it's bitter, and then many people don't like it. It's the same with mate. The first couple of ones are really not that great, but at some point you are hooked.
At some point you're hooked. Yeah, I think you're actually right. I didn't like my first beer, and I was born and raised in a beer region in Germany, in the very western part where they make Bitburger. I grew up 5 minutes from Bitburg, so heavily influenced by beer and wine. But then I think you see your parents drink beer or wine, and then I think that's what kind of instills that idea of mimicking it. And then first times you just don't like it, you push through it, as you said, and then you're on the train, and 20 years later you still have way too much coffee every day.
Well, I don't do coffee. That's why I need the mate and the tea.
Got it. Why are you not doing coffee?
I hate the taste of it. I've tried it 3 times, and once it was a milk coffee with a lot of milk, and once it was some kind of latte drink with even more milk, but I just don't like the coffee.
That's
so
fair.
I need the mate.
So you're telling me that you push through this desire, this human desire of mimicking your parents drinking coffee. Do you drink beer?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay. What's your favorite? What beer guy are you?
I'm anything but IPA, to be honest.
Yeah. There's this whole trend going on here in the Bay Area with microbreweries, and they have a ton of IPAs. But man, I'm sure there's some really good beer here. There actually is, but a lot of these IPAs are hoppy, way too hoppy. They need some German purity laws for beer brewing here in the US.
Yeah, I had a couple of good beers in the US from some microbreweries, but I forgot the names. But I mean, if you're used to the beer prices in Germany and you go to the US,
yes.
I can just order a cocktail if I want to pay $6 for one beverage.
Yeah, it's still okay, man. You pay about 15 to 20 bucks for a glass of wine here in the Bay Area. It's completely. For those who don't know, Malte Landwehr is the VP of product at Searchmetrics, and we're both from Germany. And I've been stalking, aka following Malte's career for a long time. I remember when I started, that was 10 years ago. You were already a major expert in the scene, and you were a huge household name. Yeah, you can't deny this as much as you want, but that's the reality. You were definitely on the radar, and whenever I heard your name, people were speaking highly of you. And so, before we dive deeper into your background, and I kind of want to make this episode focus a little bit on your transition out of SEO, but for people to understand really why that's important and why that's so interesting, I actually want to talk about your past in SEO. So you started as a blogger, you founded an SEO agency, you were a major expert, and I'm curious as of how did you don't have to give me the whole spiel, but how did you fall into SEO, and when did you start thinking about transitioning out of SEO? Let's start there.
Okay, so how did I get started? As long as I can remember, I wrote stuff, put it in HTML and put it on the web. Like, I don't know, I think I had my first website with 14. Obviously, nobody ever visited it. And I hope there's no backup of it anywhere. Around 16, I had like my first interactive website, like a forum where my friends from school could register and we would plan what to do on the weekend. And then people started registering there, but it was people whom I didn't tell the exact URL. So I was confused, like how did they find my forum? Like what's going on here? And that's how I discovered this thing called a log file where you can see your referrers. And then you can find out that they come from Google. So I started like searching stuff, how do people find my website on Google? And that's how I discovered PageRank and these kinds of concepts. And then I took it from there. At some point, I realized that if I have traffic, I could show them ads and make money. But I wasn't 18, so I dreamt up a tax ID to register with some of these services.
You dreamt up, you dreamt up a tax ID? So you had a fake tax ID?
I Googled one and then I changed a few digits.
Wow, now I cannot publish this. We have to cut until here.
No. It was more than 15 years ago. It's totally fine. And I never made any serious money when I was 16. Come on, it was only to register there. And then I realized that when I write about hotels in my region, for some reason, I make more money with the ads than when I write about the party my friends and I went to. And yeah, suddenly I was running this regional website for the city I was living in. When I had the wrong date for some public attractions, actually the mayor called me and told me that it's true. There was a very famous ice skating rig, and I had the wrong time slots on my website for when they opened. So a whole class of students went there an hour too early and had to wait an hour. And then they said, wow, but I got the time from the internet. They ranked #1. It must be the official website. And then the mayor called me and told me to change it. That's when I realized that, hey, this SEO stuff, this could go somewhere.
That's interesting. It's like you were like the Batman of that little town. And the mayor was calling you saying, Malte, this city needs you to update the times for this event.
It was a little bit like that, yeah.
Wow, already famous. So let's take a quick step back. So you said you always enjoyed putting things into HTML and uploading them on the web. Like how did you get to that point? Like what instilled that wish?
I don't really know. I was a nerdy teenager and liked sitting in front of my computer and trying stuff. And when I press a button and then I hit refresh in the other window and it looks different, that was cool. But
it is cool.
Yeah, it was not intended to start a career. It was just like playing around with a computer, and it was important to my dad that when I have a computer, or we had a family computer, I mean, when I was 13, that I don't just play with it, that I learn something. So I did.
That's really smart. It actually sounds a lot like my upcoming, or how I discovered SEO was pretty much the same thing, right? From computer games and then creating a website for our little gaming clan or little gaming group. And then it was the same thing where I wondered where people are coming from. So it's interesting how many people kind of fell into SEO. And I feel like nowadays we're at a point where maybe somebody, like where SEO is a bit more prominent and people might actually deliberately learn it. But I think back then, everybody just fell into it like by accident, right? And then, okay, fast forward a couple of years, you decide to start an SEO agency called SEO Factory. What was that about?
Yeah, I mean, so at that point, I had properly incorporated on my own because I was finally 18, was going to university, studying computer science, running a couple of more or less successful affiliate sites. And yeah, actually, I was invited from some members of the, I lived in Münster to go to university, from members of the Münster SEO roundup, whatever, meetup. And they're like, hey, let's found an SEO agency. And I was like, no, thanks. I didn't go to the meeting. And then there was a second meeting, and I was again, no, like, don't bother me. I want to go to university. And the day before the event, actually, or no, the day of the event, a friend of mine, whom I've known for a while, contacted me like, hey, are you coming? I was like, no, like, I don't want to found an SEO agency. But he convinced me to come, and we actually had a really great idea. So there was this shortage of SEOs back then. And we said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna found an SEO agent. We're gonna raise some money. We're gonna found an SEO agency. We're gonna do an internship on Crete for 6 months, where we rent a whole like a holiday vacation village, do training with people. Let companies also send some people, really like do really great SEO internship or SEO apprenticeship, or however we call it. And afterwards, we use all these newly trained junior SEOs to found a really large agency in Germany with offices in the 5 most important cities. And we're gonna offer SEO, PPC, and web analytics, and let's do it. And we had a complete business plan, all the roles were assigned, and then there was this financial crisis. So all the investors pulled out, and then we said, you know what, let's just do it on our own. So we took our own money. Most of the experts that were on board said, no, if you don't have investor, you are out. So suddenly I was like one of the only experts left. And I was, I think, head of SEO or something was my title. And I was 22 at that time, right? I was like still mainly going to university. And I didn't want to take like a break from university. But we did, we recruited, I think, 35 interns, went with them to Crete for 3 months, did this SEO internship, and had some really good speakers, like ex-Google people, people from all the large affiliate websites, affiliate networks. And actually, some of these interns nowadays, they work at some of the largest SEO agencies in Germany. One of them works at Google. Like, thanks to this, I learned a lot about business at a very young age. And I also built a huge network of people where I can say, oh yeah, that person learned SEO from me 10 years ago. But we founded the whole thing with 6 people. I was the youngest at 22. The oldest was, I think, 45. And we were at very different points in our lives. Some of us said, I need this to be my full-time paying job. I was like, I make money with my affiliate websites. I'm a student. I don't have any cost. I don't need money from this. All the money we make, we should reinvest in the company. So we had very different opinions. So after like half a year, the whole thing broke apart. We could salvage the rest more or less, but it turned into an in-house SEO team for the companies of one of the founders who had like a vacation rental company, and that he sold that business. He was fine. I got the money back that I invested, but I made 0 profit out of the whole thing. I just learned a ton, especially about the separation of business and friendship. And just because people say they're gonna do X doesn't mean they're gonna do X. And yeah, I've become, I had to grow up business-wise very quickly. Before that, I was like completely oblivious to most of the business aspects of SEO. Like I was spending, I don't know, $5 a month for hosting and was making $500 per website, and I was happy. And I thought I'd figured it all out. But turns out I was just a stupid 22-year-old who still needed to learn a lot.
That doesn't sound so stupid to me, but it's funny because I know that I know a couple of those people that came out of this trip to Crete, which is on Greece, for those who don't know, beautiful island. And I also know some of the crazy stories that happened there, but we're not going to go into those. I know some. I'm sure there's so much more. Anyway, I'm going to leave that open and never close this in the show.
I know some of the people you know. Yeah.
It's kind of it's fascinating though, because so many people that helped me come up in SEO back then in Germany were in this program or did this kind of internship on Crete. So it's kind of all connected in Germany, which I feel like still is the case. And it's partially probably because Germany is a bit smaller than the US, but it's other than most things in Germany, it's not that fragmented, right? Like you have the SEO Campix, which is this SEO conference that most people go to every year in Berlin, right? And so I think there's so many touch points for the SEO scene to have where they frequently come together and so many shared things in the past. So that's kind of fascinating. But you said that a couple of the things you learned are that only because people are gonna or saying they're gonna do X, they're not gonna do X. Can you elaborate on that?
Don't want to mention.
But you can keep it generic, like what did you learn about people doing what they say, and how does that help you in your job nowadays?
I don't know if it helps me in my job nowadays, but I mean, with 6 founders and like a 7th person saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna invest soon. I'm gonna join as a founder." I was just very naive and thought, okay, they said they're gonna invest 100,000, so next month they're gonna have 100,000 more, and then it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen the next month, and it doesn't happen the next month. And suddenly they're like, oh, my wife is pregnant again. I don't want to start a new venture. Bye. Or, I mean, which is fine, right? People's personal circumstances change and everything, and I'm still friends with that person. But there were also people with whom I would never again work together. And people do weird things when they think somebody attacked their work ego, and especially when it's about money, you can put friendship down the drain.
Oh, totally. And I feel like so many people have a story to tell about that. So it's a major topic that probably deserves its own kind of show or a podcast or a video or whatever. But yeah, it's a really good learning, especially when you make it early on, I feel like. So you being 22, going through all of that has probably majorly benefited you, moving forward with your career. Do you feel like, go ahead, please.
I would also say it made me more humble. Like I realized that only because I have figured out this SEO thing and can rank my own affiliate sites, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily great at teaching 30 people how to do SEO, which was a huge learning for me. And especially like being involved with some of our customers and prospects made me realize that most of the SEO challenges that people have in the business world are actually completely unrelated to whether the keyword must be in H1 or H2. But the problem is more like budget, headcounts, priority, internal communications, these kinds of things where, to be honest, I wasn't really able to help back then. And nowadays, if I were to do SEO consulting ever again, I would probably allocate 90% of my effort to that kind of things and only 10% to the actual technical audit and implementation, because in the end, it's just about getting the basics right. And the hard work is in stakeholder alignment and strategy and stuff.
Preach. You couldn't say it any better. Totally speaks my mind here. To me, SEO is majorly or mainly an execution problem and not a knowledge problem. So I think you're 100% on the money. And it always cracks me up when people ask for the latest hack and trick and something. And, like you deep down, having been through this, that the biggest needle mover is just more resources, more stakeholder alignment, more backup, right? Evangelization of SEO. That's what really moves the needle, right? So, okay. Fast forward again. So you've been through this whole kind of SEO journey, had some, learned a lot about the business side of it as well, established yourself as an expert. And then what was the point when you said to yourself, maybe I should step out of SEO? And I think this is kind of this is the key here of this whole conversation between you and I, because I feel like every SEO that has some skin under the nails, right, that has some experience, regularly plays with the thought of getting out of SEO, right? And I think, and this is just my theory, that it is because SEO is such a meta layer on top of other things, right? It's not really its own type of thing. It's something that you put on top of other things. So a lot of people who deal with SEO, from like who are really doing SEO, they come to a point where they realize that they could do something else and still take their SEO learnings with them and establish, like become an expert in something else that is a bit more tangible and less this set of guidelines and rules. So what was the point for you when you told yourself, man, I want to develop further, I want to step out of this?
So actually, for me, it was more like I was interested in something else, and then afterwards, I found tons of arguments why it's the right thing. So, I mean, even when I was doing only SEO, I was always interested in trying out new things. And I mean, I was not just doing SEO, I was also doing lots of social media and with real and with fake accounts on Twitter. Yeah. And or you don't know my fake account stories?
I have no idea, but I have a strong feeling that I want to know right now.
Do you know the show in Germany, Germany's Next Top Model?
Yes.
What's the English name?
Honestly, I think it's like a franchise. I think they have something similar
probably
in the US and Great
right?
Britain. Yeah.
So I was that Twitter account. And I was
Wait, you were the Twitter account for Germany's Next Top Model?
At GNTM. I just registered it. And
Heidi... Okay, wait. You saw that this show was coming, and then you were like, oh, those fools are going to miss registering the Twitter
account.
It
was already in the second season or something, and the account was still free. So I registered it, and Heidi Klum, the host, she retweeted it. All the TV shows retweeted it. Some newspapers referenced it. Like, actually, there's an employee at the TV show who wrote in the I don't know what's it called, these, when they print it on paper that you read the TV program. I mean, I don't know who everybody still uses it, but in the official notes, there was, you can also follow the show along on the Twitter account. When they show won awards, the agency Scholz and Friends, one of the most well-known agencies in Germany, they mentioned the account as having won the award, and it was hilarious. I had a lot of fun, and I actually I set up a system so that multiple people could access the account at the same time without knowing the password. So I had a group of 3 female friends. They would always watch the show together and drink champagne, and I gave them access to this account to live tweet during the show. And it was magical. You wrote a tweet, and in less than 1 minute, you had like 100 retweets, mentions, and likes, because all the fans watching it were like waiting for tweets from the official account. I had a lot of fun. I also had all the Twitter accounts for all the soccer clubs in the first and second Bundesliga. Had up to, I think, 20,000 followers per account, and I had a lot of fun back then. I also had the Google Webmaster blog account, and I lost it after I tweeted an affiliate link to a link seller.
That is a crazy story. Another one of those crazy stories, man. I feel like we got to do more shows together. So how did you monetize this whole Twitter? I don't want to call it a scheme. It's not technically a scheme, but
a lot was just for fun, which is mainly my point. Most of these things, when I could prove, okay, there's a way to make money and I have fun, I stopped doing it and did the next thing, because I was young, I didn't need the money, I didn't think about getting rich quick and investing it. Nowadays, I think how stupid. Should have made the money, buy some stocks, and now I would be well off. But no, I like to challenge myself. And for the soccer accounts, Amazon affiliate links, whenever there was good weather, because for every soccer club, there is a barbecue set in their colors. And I would Twitter the affiliate link to Amazon.
Nice.
And back then, there was this feature in Google that they would show the latest tweets in the SERP when there was a query deserves freshness thing going on. So I tweeted that, and yeah.
Nice. Oh, man.
Anyways, so
that was a great story. Thanks for telling that. That was amazing. It's funny how many shady things come to my mind when I think of having such power. And I think it's very honorable that you just did this for fun and you're like, hey, I'm trying this out. Because my brain immediately goes to, what can I do with any redirects and cookie drops and all these kind of things? But man, kudos for not exploiting all the 13-year-old girls who were watching Germany Next Top Models.
I was also the link czar on Twitter, if you remember that one.
Yes, I do remember that one actually.
Yeah.
You have a crazy Twitter history. Are all these accounts banned now, or what did you do with those accounts?
So some of them I sold, and a lot of them I renamed. I had a source that told me, hey, somebody's aware that there are a lot of fake accounts in Germany, maybe watch it. And I actually lost some of the soccer accounts. And then I renamed all of them to like weird topics where I had a random affiliate website. And I also have a folder full of screenshots from 10 years ago where people then complain like, why am I following this weird account? I think somebody sold their soccer account. This is so weird. Because I had weird affiliate websites. So don't want to mention the topics, but lots of stuff. Anyways, we were coming to I think why I wanted to get out of SEO. So I felt like I had done it all, and it was all fun, but I also didn't see myself doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Like I needed a challenge. And for a time I thought, hey, university is going to be that challenge. So I started a PhD in computer science. I did some nice research projects for Vodafone, IBM, Microsoft. The university had really great partners. I did some interesting Twitter scraping and social network analysis things. I once presented it to the university, and the first question was if the CIA had already approached us, because we were like one of the systems I built based on Facebook groups and friendships. I could tell you which students were falling behind in the semester. And
it's even worse than Cambridge Analytica, you know that.
And I manually de-anonymized the network. But if the university had given me access to a register of all students and their subjects, and like I could have had some more fun, but they said no for ethical reasons. And
they were smart.
Yeah, but then I realized that academia is not for me. Like I like to analyze data in depth and not do it for profit, but to come up with like insights. But a lot of it was just about getting the data for getting the grant, getting the research money, then doing like the bare minimum and using your time efficiently on other things. And that's not me. Like if I do something, I do it all in. And I don't start 15 projects just to finance 10 other people who work at the university.
Sorry for this little drop off. Skype just left us and crashed in the middle of our conversation. I'm sure you said something really smart and really intriguing. So thanks for nothing, Skype. Do you remember where we left off?
Yeah, you said a couple of smart things about how to be data informed instead of data driven. And I was just about to say that I think the same thing. So you should look at a lot of data and at different kinds of data, like tracking what people actually do in your product, but also talking to them, understanding their needs. And I think if you're completely data driven, you will always only build a small increment and another small increment and another small increment. But for the big improvements, you actually need to take a step back, look at what actually are the problems that my users are trying to solve, which often is not what they want. What users want is to be able to save 5 clicks in their workflow. What you can actually do for them is automating the workflow, but nobody thinks about that. And I mean, there's this saying from Henry Ford, if I had asked my clients what they want, they would have said faster horses. Instead, he built cars. And I think that's very much the reality. Like for the big stuff, you need to need to develop a really deep understanding of your users or your target users, which might not even be your current users, and then just build. And if you 100% believe that your vision is right, you can be like Apple, and you can decide what's Flash. I hate it. I will not support it. You can say what's a jack for the speaker. I hate it. I will not support it. And I mean, they were right in both things. So now, a few years later, everybody else also stopped supporting Flash. Samsung just released their first line of smartphones without a headphone jack. So Apple was right in what they said, but I think very few brands manage again and again and again and again to be right. It's a very rare thing, and you need to be really visionary to pull that off, and that's where then it makes sense to be more data informed and listening more to people and understanding their needs and understanding their problems.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so the question that I immediately asked myself when you mentioned that is, how do you get better at creating that vision? How do you feed your gut instinct or your gut feeling to create a great product? There has to be some stuff that you do on a regular basis that helps you get there.
It's interesting. We actually just went through an exercise of defining our product strategy. So a little bit of background, maybe in the past it was driven by the founder of this company, Marcus Tober, but he switched to a more non-daily business role and is like Chief Innovation Officer. So I'm now in my role as VP Product, and many other people have stepped up and taken on part of his responsibilities. And one of the things we did together was coming up with a product strategy for the next 3 to 5 years. I try to say for the next 5 years, and it's less scary what we want to do. But we use 2 different approaches. So one is we used a canvas approach. So there's like 15 different like canvases for ideas, for features, for businesses, and we just picked one. And we filled it out, I would say 60 times with different ideas. And I mean, we did this as a group. Sure. And then always talked about, okay, what's a good idea here? And then of course looked at our current financials and the desire where we want to be. And we threw away a lot of ideas, but there were also a lot of things where we said, hey, yeah, let's do this, let's fund this. And that helped us a lot to find the right direction. And whenever there was like an area where we thought, hey, really not sure what we need to do here, you do 10 canvases, let's meet next week. And we actually did it, and we spent a lot of management attention on it, up to the CEO, and it really paid off. Like it helped us a lot to define what we want to do. And in parallel, we did another thing, like a framework from some ex-McKinsey consultants about analyzing strengths and weaknesses of a company. And basically that way, with these bottom-up canvas approach and the top-down model from the McKinsey guys, we kind of like found our vision and our strategy and what we want to do. And we also had some external experts provide like their take on what are the current and future trends on SEO and content marketing. We asked our internal experts like myself, what do we see as the future trends, and combined all of that. And it took us half a year, but actually it's a Monday right now, and this week there's a call with the whole company to reveal it internally to everyone.
Nice. You can reveal to us. I'm not going to publish before you're going to.
No, I'm not.
No, totally kidding. But on a serious note, I think this is actually freaking hard. Vision strategy is so hard, which is probably why so many people talk about tactics, because it's so much more tangible. And I found myself in a similar spot where I now am in a much more strategic position and had to come up with a vision for my teams. And it sounds so easy in theory, or it looks so easy in theory, right? Like, yeah, you just imagine some scenario in the future, and then you will describe it. It's like, yeah, no, it's not actually. That's not enough, right? Like, I totally understand why it took you half a year to come up with that. It's a really hard thing to do. And not only that, but this vision has to be robust, right? It's going to define the roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years. So you can't just dream something up. You have to actually think it all the way through. And I personally love, like, I find this very intriguing. But what helps you? So I'm curious in your day-to-day kind of work and routine. What are some of the tools that you use in your role as VP of product, and what are maybe some of the tools that you're still missing or where you find workarounds?
You mean software tools or processes?
Both.
So software-wise, Jira and Confluence. As a former Atlassian guy, you might appreciate that.
Noted.
No, seriously, that's they are perfect for what they need to do. And especially documenting things in Confluence, like even little things where everybody assumes like we know what we do, how we do it. But like we last month, this month, we are onboarding a lot of new people in product and development. And it's so helpful if you just write down for each engineering team, how do they do the retro? How do they do the planning 1? How do they do planning 2? Do they even do planning 1 and planning 2? How do they do grooming? Like, just having it all written down, it makes it so easy to onboard new employees. Like we had 3 changes in the product management team, and I ended up temporarily being a product owner actually for 2 sprints for one team, which I'm normally not. But since everything was written down, it was so easy. Like we started the meeting, and in theory, nobody of us would have needed to know anything about how in this team grooming is done. But we look at the Confluence for this team. This is how we do it. Okay, let's do it. And it's so helpful for new people. It's so helpful for people who switch between teams, or for people who are like part of multiple teams because they have more like an architect or consultant role. Super helpful for product managers who do like stepping in when somebody is sick or on vacation. That's super, super helpful. Of course, Jira for tracking epics and everything. Visualizing a roadmap is I think, super important.
Yeah.
And then also sharing this roadmap internally with everyone in the company is very important. And they're especially making it clear for the people who are not part of product or development what part of the roadmap is like properly groomed and planned out, and what is just like a placeholder bar that could also end up being 3 times as long, but could also end up being a lot shorter. And when you do that, I think that's super helpful. And we do it by giving some key stakeholders access to our roadmap permanently. And we also do like quarterly internal roadmap meetings where we always present, this is what we want to do in the next 3 months. We already show some click dummies, some concepts, also show what we're doing on the technical side. Like we often have to do work that doesn't end up being visible in the product, but it's super important because there are some databases that we use to their limits. And yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you deal with big data, right? If you want to change something, you're like, okay, how long will this take? Oh, transferring this data to the new database will take 3 months. Like, okay, interesting.
Yes. I remember that at Searchmetrics. I know Searchmetrics has a like insane databases and insane historical data, probably some of the best in the game for sure. And I remember some of these conversations, and I remember how doing the ranking factor studies back in the days and how much data that was. So that is a major implication that I think a lot of people from the outside don't appreciate or are not aware of, right? They're like, oh, can't you just change this feature? And it's like, there's a ton of stuff attached to this. It doesn't go that far or that well. But I also love how you mentioned Confluence, because that was actually one of the biggest, I wouldn't even call it a tip, but one of the best things that I did. So at Atlassian, I saw how when Confluence, or you can call it an internal wiki or whatever you want to attach, it doesn't have to be Confluence itself, right? But when you have this kind of digital brain incorporated in a company and what that can do, at Atlassian, you were able to read blog posts from the founders from 15 years ago, right? So there's so many benefits that it would take me probably the whole day to just go through all of them. But every company should do this. Every company should have something like a Confluence or a way to document things and communicate. And then, yeah, I mean, just going back and understanding how the company grew and what the mindset was back then, there's so much you can learn from this. And so that's one of the first things that I did at G2 was bring something like that in, have people document, and make people write things down. Because not only do you think about things more and more in depth when you write them down, you also internalize them. So there's this saying that I read somewhere that said writing something down is like learn, like saying it out loud 7 times or something like that. It's just in terms of how well you're able to memorize it. But then also it's clear communication, right? That's what I love about it. Communication is so hard. And if SEO is mainly about getting things done, then it's also a lot about communicating clearly, which is not as easy as it sounds. And so that was just one of the reasons for why I love an internal kind of wiki that forces you to document and put things into writing. And so one question that came up was, what did you learn about, what did you take away from your time as an actual SEO practitioner for your job nowadays? Now, obviously, you're also part of the target group because you are an SEO expert, so it makes perfect sense for you to take over product. But what did you learn in terms of like the way you think and the way you approach things from SEO for product?
I mean, the way I did SEO was always looking at data and trying to come up with something, either finding like the secret ranking factor in an industry or just like scraping some data and presenting it in a different way for content marketing purposes. But I mean, I also had custom plugins developed for my WordPress sites. And of course, there I was basically doing product management, right? I was like writing a specification, finding a cheap developer in Indonesia, sending to him what I want. He would get back to me. I would iteratively provide feedback. I wouldn't say I did any kind of Kanban or Scrum, but I basically wrote some kind of user story, right? Yeah. And this is actually what many SEOs do, like technical SEOs. And that's the perfect foundation for product management in my experience. And I actually have one product manager on my team who used to be an SEO. And in the interview, it turned out he was already familiar with, for example, writing Jira tickets, because that's what he did as a technical SEO, right? He would crawl the website, look at some things, and then make recommendations how to change most of the time the template or the internal links. And that is what part of the product management work is all about.
Man, I can hear like 1,000 technical SEOs in front of the computer shouting, "Hurrah! He's saying it. He's admitting it. He's right." And I think you totally are, 100%. That feeds my kind of theory that SEO is, or it's not my theory, right? But that kind of feeds the fact that SEO is so much about product.
But I've also encountered the complete opposite. So one of the smartest SEOs I know, I will not say her name, she said she doesn't want to get into product because she tried it, and she can't handle the stress of the developers coming back, pushing back on the tickets, having questions for clarification. And I mean, that's also part of being a product manager. You need to be able to, you need to be a storyteller, like, and an educator. You need to convince people why your tickets are important, or why the whole epic you're working on is important. And when people have questions, you need to answer them. And when people have assumed that they have knowledge and are subject matter experts, but are actually not, then of course it's the hardest challenge, right? Because then you need to, in a friendly manner, tell them that you know better, or the external experts you ask know better, and this is how it should be, and this is how it works. And of course, that's a challenge for many people. And I mean, of course, I also believe many SEOs should switch into product long term. I've actually seen some really good examples of that happening, but it's not for everyone.
No, I'm sure it's not. You're absolutely right. I love how you pointed out that good product people have to be storytellers. I 100% believe this. I actually believe everybody has to be a good storyteller. It's probably part of sales, right? But to be not too philosophical, I think there's a very tangible benefit of actually dissecting what storytelling is for product people. Not even only internally, but also externally when you market the product. And that's where I see the lines between marketing and product blurring, and that's where I see there's a strong case for growth. But anyway, don't want to drift into all of these avenues. But a lot of the things that you said are actually much deeper, and there's a lot more to them than we could handle in this conversation. But maybe we can quickly touch up on stories. What is your kind of, we don't have to take this super far, but what is your kind of high level framework for telling stories? Like, how do you approach this, or how do you tell a good story in product?
Honestly, I don't have a framework. Since I'm also an subject matter expert, and since I'm used to telling stories and I'm used to using data for my assumptions, it just comes naturally to me, which is a problem because it means I don't have a process that I can easily analyze and optimize or teach to others. But I've never really thought about it a lot. Like normally I just tell people, okay, look, here's the problem. Here's how I think we should solve it. Please keep in mind to never take my word for like the truth. Here's a couple of internal stakeholders you talk to. Please verify this with 5 customers. Go. Like I actually have the reverse problem that I sometimes need to tell people to not just do something because the idea came from me. Like I actually stopped reporting bugs in my name because then for some reason the ticket is super high priority, even though I was just like, no, yes. I meant like when we have time, let's do it. It's not blocking a customer. It's not a priority. So yeah, but I can't really answer the question how to best tell stories and how to approach that with a framework.
Sure, I'm pretty convinced that you probably have one. You just can't point it out, but probably you internalize it over all these years, and it's there subconsciously. So I'm pretty sure you have an approach. But anyway, so you're on the other side, right? A lot of SEOs are really curious about what they can learn from you about better working with product. Like what is the thing that SEOs don't know that you can tell from the other side that they should be aware of?
So how SEOs can work together with product better?
Yeah. Like how do they fail on a continuous basis?
Take your product manager out to lunch. Step number 1. Step number 2 is actually join planning and grooming. So unless the product manager knows SEO themselves, they will not be able to tell the engineers all the details in the grooming. So you need to be there. You need to exactly explain what should be done. And also be there in the planning, because if all the engineers ask, why is this important? Why should we do it this sprint? And you are not there, maybe the product manager will fight for your ticket, maybe not. And I think that's the most important thing to become part of the sprint. I mean, the development team needs to accept it. If you enforce this, you have a problem. And then definitely have buy-in from chief product officer, chief technology officer, or VP engineering, VP product, these kinds of people, because if you don't have the buy-in, if you are just like, that's one of the guys who was sent by marketing, we're gonna ignore him, you have already lost.
You can do it like the club mods in the beginning. You force them as long as until they like it.
That's not how I would recommend anybody behave in the business world. I'm sure there are companies where you can do it, but that's not my recommendation.
It's worth a try. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. But I agree. It's a really good point and good learning, good lesson for myself. Yeah. And I think more of the meetings.
Also important is to understand how user stories are written in that company, because everybody has a different style, and to just write your tickets just in that way, and not come up with your own definition of what a user story should look like, but really look at how they do it normally for their other technical topics. And if you have to decide between providing too much or too little context, always go for too much. Even if it's a super simple thing and you think the user story in itself makes it obvious what the acceptance criteria is, click on acceptance criteria and write down what the acceptance criteria is, so that it's like really super clear for everyone who, even when you are not in the room and they read it, they understand what is meant. And I think that also ties back nicely to how to document knowledge inside of a company, because I've also realized that when you write meeting notes on every meeting, which is super helpful, one of the important things is to think about somebody who doesn't have any context and reads this. Do they get it or not? And that's what you should also think about when you write your tickets. Like, don't assume that somebody is working on this with whom you had a meeting the week before explaining for 2 hours what you want to do. Assume that somebody gets this. It's completely out of context. They don't know about your new, I don't know, tagging strategy and the new framework for information architecture. They just have a task to, I don't know, put the link to the 5 most related tags or something, and make it clear that they can grasp what they need to do on the level of a task, the level of a ticket. That's the best advice I can give.
Yeah, totally. It comes back to clear communication, right? But I love that you point out that people should think about the context and providing all the context. Most of the time, it's not that hard, and you don't have to write a ton. It's just catching people from zero, right? Or basically introducing them from scratch to a certain situation. So that's super helpful. And I think there's an ongoing challenge that I see is the conversation between SEO and product, because in most cases SEO is under marketing, which I think is a mistake for most companies.
Yes.
Especially when they scale through SEO, right? Like any sort of marketplace or e-commerce site, social network, publishers, like any site.
If SEO is one of your growth channels, and it's not a growth channel because you are a large brand that is abusing an underserved market, SEO absolutely should be in product management. Like, there should be product managers for SEO. Maybe you also have a content SEO team in marketing that works with content marketing, social media. But the tech SEO should be part of product management. And I've actually seen one company, they are customers, so I can't name the name, but their SEO visibility was flatlining for like 2.5 years. And the month they moved the SEO team from marketing to product, the SEO visibility started to grow.
Yeah, because Google knows where the SEOs are in the organization.
No, because they got 1, 2, 3, I don't know how many engineering teams, and funnily enough, they spent a lot of their time and resources on improving the user experience of the landing pages that are not ranking well. So it was not about like putting the keyword in the title. It was about, oh, we have this 3 million landing pages with really shitty bounce rate. Let's maybe look at the template and improve it. And that's what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I think probably one of the best hacks for most companies out there to double their organic traffic is to just give dedicated developer resources to some SEOs, right? Make them a growth team, or in best case, right, include them in the main product team. But even if you just like create a growth team with a couple of dedicated resources, you can do so much. I know so many SEOs that if they had their own resources, they would kill it and probably 2 or 3 or 4x organic traffic. But then reality is that in most companies, the product team just asks for some SEO guidelines or just explain SEO to our developers. But it just does not work like that. You can't just offload a set of rules and guidelines and articles on a product team and make them successful in SEO. You have to have a dedicated person thinking about SEO, driving those things forward, testing and iterating, right? I think also the whole kind of idea of testing becomes more important for SEO, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's so much to say about that. But I love that you point this out, right? Documenting, including SEO under product, and then just embracing growth within a product team, I think is also super important. So what is something that's so talk about what SEOs can kind of learn from product. What is something that how should I phrase this question? That you think more product people should kind of, what have you learned in your time products that would be really beneficial for other product people to learn in terms of SEO without going to SEO tactics, right? But how can you make product people more successful in collaborating with SEOs?
I think if you incentivize them, they will. I think it's not that they can't interact with SEOs. It's more like in most places, product is not incentivized to work with SEO, not at all. And even if they are, then engineering is not incentivized. And for one of our clients, who's, need to be careful how I phrased it, not reveal it, whose stock market evaluation is very much tied to the SEO visibility, where we did mainly consulting work and helped them fix an SEO issue, and their stock price went up similarly to the SEO visibility. It was actually the one of the investors who brought us in, and suddenly there was pressure on the CEO, and the CEO put pressure on the CTO, and then it was very easy to get all the SEO stuff done. And most product teams that I know, like I spend a lot of time like meeting other companies here in Berlin at meetups, or just talking to people to learn how others are doing it. And SEO rarely comes up in product teams. It's not on their radar. And I don't think it's the people who don't want to do it. It's that management doesn't incentivize it. That's all.
Yes, 100%.
Like give them visibility or traffic or revenue from SEO or something as a KPI, and they will figure it out.
Totally. Yeah, I don't want to take up your time for way too long. There's just one or maybe two questions that I have. One of them being, have you changed your mind about something in SEO now that you're stepped out from being a practitioner mostly?
I think the one example I gave earlier, that I realized SEO success rarely depends on who's the best SEO. It depends on many other things, like buy-in, headcounts, budget, etc., alignment, especially alignment. And I think that's the main thing where I changed my mind. And then I would say, like 10 years ago, I have always advocated for, use the structured data, show Google even better all the data you have. And nowadays I'm more like, what's your long-term strategic approach here? Like Google for Jobs, right? Like, do you want to be one of the first movers and get some of the traffic? Or do you want to delay the point in time where Google makes you redundant?
Yes.
And so I've become a lot more strategic in that regard. And I would say, like 10 years ago, if you had told me to do SEO for a company, I would have crawled the website and said, let's change this, and this. Nowadays, I would say, okay, what's the plan for the quarter? What's the plan for the year? Which of your business units makes the most, has the best ROI? If you're selling physical goods, is there still stuff in storage we need to get rid of? Like I would look at a lot of different factors that are completely unrelated from SEO before I could even start prioritizing SEO work. I also don't think that I could ever limit myself to SEO again, because there are like so many use cases where I would be like, no, if you want this to happen tomorrow, we do it with AdWords. We don't try to rank the landing page tomorrow. We don't waste time on it. If you're running a campaign for only 2 weeks, you're gonna pay for it with AdWords. There's no way we're gonna rank a landing page quickly on these kinds of things, right? So I could only look at it holistically, including product and marketing. Otherwise, I would feel like I would get restless and try to change too many things.
I think there's no better note to end on than the last couple of things that you said. There's so much wisdom in that, and I feel kind of there's all these decades of your experience are included in that quote, man.
Dude,
come on.
32.
Yeah, but still, that's at least a decade. So you started your SEO agency 10 years ago, 1.5 decades almost. Let's call it that. But yeah, there is so much to gain out of that. So thank you so much for your time, Malte. Where can people find you? Where can people follow you, and where can they stalk you?
On LinkedIn and Twitter. Just search for my name, my full name, and you can find me. Or if you like mirror selfies, you can also follow me on Instagram.
I was going to bring that up. So real quick, what's the story with mirror selfies?
I don't know. It just randomly happened. We have this mirror here in the stairwell at Searchmetrics, and just for fun, I started taking pictures and using a lot of fake hashtags like outfit of the day, etc., etc. And now it's just what people expect. So now I just do a mirror selfie every day.
Yeah, that's how I know you're alive and well. Is when I see mirror selfie every day. I follow you, and one day we'll take one together, or basically next time that I'm in Berlin. But thanks, man.
Do that. Let's absolutely do that.
100%. We'll record another session in front of the mirror with Club Malte. How about that?
Yeah, I'm in.
Awesome. Now you're committed. I got this recorded. Perfect. I'm absolutely dead serious. And people will find out when we do this. But Malte, thanks so much, man. That was super generous of you. I really respect you and everything you did for the SEO community, but also sharing your wisdom. So thank you very, very, very much. And yeah, people go follow Malte. He drops a lot of daily wisdom and selfie mirrors. There's always value in that. There's a deeper philosophy that I'm not going to explain. I'd say
people should just follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn, where I post the SEO stuff.
Now you're going to become an Instagram influencer. I'm telling you that. I'm going to direct them all over there. But yeah, again, thanks for your time. Everybody have a nice day and talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.